Hello, and welcome to another episode of Lectures of Fallen Wisdom. Today I'm going to talk about the monster boy with a tan. Now, this is an interesting phenomenon that occurs whenever you're with a woman that you've attained a certain level of lust for, and you finally do get her in that classically unforgettable position, and you bust a huge one. Huge. And of course, it's like a geyser. And it completely overtakes your whole body. You'll just never bust a nut like that again. And your whole relationship will become an attempt to try to recreate that nut, which you will never get. But you will constantly become obsessed with it, and she, as the source of it, will become an object of absolute obsession. You'll notice that that's the monster boy condition. The monster boy condition is just like the obsession with a particular girl in a lustful way that eclipses all other women and makes you obsessed in a way that eventually gets you dumped. You become so attached sexually to this one girl that she starts to sense it and starts to feel very confined and starts to feel very stifled by it. And so eventually she starts to pull away. And the monster boy's first thing that happens is the monster boy gets extremely jealous and extremely paranoid and extremely unpleasant to deal with when not having sex, and tries to emotionally manipulate and abuse the girl in a means of keeping her. It never works, and she ends up leaving him, and he is devastated, destroyed, really. And the first thing that happens is, there's two things that can happen to you in a relationship that are bad. And one is the fat, skinny kid, which is the thing I talked about on the last show. Is just like a complacency, a retaining of water, just a kind of like Joe Schmo kind of existence that, you're about 10 pounds overweight. You just can never get that 10 pounds off. You live life in the middle. You're just kind of treading water and trying to entertain yourself, jerk off here and there, just have a good time while you're here, just kind of waiting in life. And the fat, skinny kid often gets dumped too. They get dumped for a different reason, but actually sorry, my jacket is super loud. It makes a lot of noise. I don't think it's real leather, which is a good thing when it makes the sound. So what was I saying? Yes. So this monster boy, this fat, skinny kid situation, which I talked about last show, it is also characterized by a kind of lust, but it's more of just like you've attained what your lust was looking for, so then you start to just become complacent, and you start to just let yourself go a little bit. And usually the woman that you're with is fine with it because you're kind of subservient. You're not exciting, but at the same time, you're pretty a safe bet with them. And, you're taking probably decent, good care of them. They don't like it that you've taken them for granted, but, and that can often lead to a wandering eye, but you're oblivious to that. As a fat, skinny kid, you don't even suspect or care or think about your wife cheating on you. It's like you do get a little jealous here and there, but it's nothing like a monster boy. Now, with the monster boy, it's a whole different story. It usually comes after courting a woman or let's just say anybody who you were really attracted to, and you had to do a considerable amount of effort to get them. Those people will, when you finally do get them in a sexual situation, it's great because it took so much effort. When you get something, that's why women who give it up really quick, and they wonder why the guy doesn't call. it has to be a little bit difficult, or else the guy's just going to take it as easy and not valuable. It's just simple horonomics. Don't ask me. I didn't come up with horonomics. Mike Trojan did, and it's a brilliant thing that you can't really deny. And one of these days we'll go through it. But the basic is the idea is that nobody really wants who wants them. If somebody really wants you, you're suspect in that, and you start to think that the guy's more of a loser than somebody who really wants you personally. You start to look at it as an underlying condition rather than a real genuine show of affection, and it's a turnoff. It's a fucking turnoff. So guys who get really attached sexually to a particular woman are usually bucked off within the next few months because of just the sheer annoyingness of it. And so switching over from I still believe the monster boy is preferable to the fat, skinny kid. Often the monster boy will be in great shape. The monster boy will be like the perfect guy, but except for this problem that he's just obsessed with the just having sex with a particular woman. And it's very uncomfortable for a woman. As much as they love to be the center of attention, in that kind of thing, they don't want to be. They would rather be, they would rather be, share your attention with all the other hot girls. The fact that other hot girls exist is a great buffer for women. They don't understand. Like, they understand it when they encounter a monster boy and they just wish for that. Like, they hate it that they're the center of this person's whole existence, and it's very unattractive. And that's one of the big traits of the monster boy is not only does he have a tan, that's a little added feature there. It's like, for some reason you seek out a tan. I think it's because you're trying to be the perfect guy for her so she doesn't buck you. Meanwhile, you're like a total asshole with a tan. So you might look good with your tan, but you're a dick and you don't really behave well, and you're just so afraid of losing her, and you see every other guy is a threat, and you're just jealous. One of the clear sign that the monster boy is forming is if you start drooling on her when you're having sex with her. It's just that's a telltale sign. And then of course just the nut itself. If it's like a super huge nut, like super powerful, then it's something that is going to trap you into this state. Now, is there a way once this happens to you, like how do you prevent it? How do you stop it from happening? The trick is to interact with other women that you think are beautiful. And that doesn't mean to cheat on your woman. It's more just to disperse your energy among other females and to collect energy from other females. It doesn't have to. You can collect sexual energy from another female without actually having any sex. But you should be doing that. You should be having interactions with other female women, and that's one way to guard against Monster Boy. Did I just say female women? Well, anybody who you are attracted to, okay, it doesn't matter the sex. This applies on all sexes. I'm talking from the point of view of man, woman, because that's my orientation. So you can graph on your sexuality to whatever, but these directives apply to any sexuality. You want what you think you can't have, and when you get something that you thought you couldn't have, the nut is bigger, okay? And then it's just the orgasm is bigger. And then that orgasm ties you to this person because they're the source of just like this super pleasure. Now, why is it that the orgasm is so important? And usually that's inversely related to your anxiety level. Like, you are not able to have, your capacity for having an orgasm is like directly related to your anxiety level. And your anxiety level of not being able to get her was so high that when you finally did get her and had sex with her, the pop was the reverse of it. The reverse of your anxiety was like a major orgasm. So anxiety and orgasm and anxiety and lust are two sides of the same exact coin. You can't have one without the other, and like one produces the other. And so that's why you know that if you're feeling a ton of lust, you're feeling a ton of anxiety. You need to, you're trying to get to the other side. You're trying to invert the anxiety, and you see this avenue of lust as a way to do it. And particularly when the anxiety is centered around you trying to court a particular woman, it's all tied in. I mean, you can get rid of your lust and you can get rid of your anxiety for a moment by indulging your lust with other women. But when it's like this particular woman, you know she's going to get you there, and you're just eager to try again, even though it's never as good. You never get there. You will just keep trying. It's like when you had the first few cigarettes that felt really awesome, and now you're a smoker, and it's like they taste like a fucking toilet. It's just and every once in a while you get a whiff of that first cigarette. It's great, but it's never as good as it was in that one moment in time when it was awesome. And you're always chasing that. And you do that with every drug too. And you do it with women. You do it with your woman, especially like a woman that you've pursued with a lot of gusto and anxiety. And the anxiety is, like I said, inversely related to your lust. So think about that next time you're just like so looking at a woman just with such lust. The fact that you're just like, oh my God, I'm feeling so much lust, that is your anxiety just colored in a different form. And it's easier to see that way because most of us want to suppress the idea that we have anxiety. Like, I don't have anxiety. I'm fine. Everything's great. It's like the fact that you have to say that is proof positive that's not. You shouldn't even have to even affirm it. It just should be there. And you shouldn't even have to think it one way or the other. The fact that you're posing it, it's pretty evident that you're not feeling that way, that you do have anxiety, and that's how you can tell is your lust level. So tremendous anxiety in the monster boy condition because it's always fearful of losing the object of that monster orgasm, and so that person becomes very, very important in a way, in an obsessive way, in a possessive way that's unattractive and drives the other person away. Why do I think that the monster boy is preferable to the fat skinny? Well, because he's in shape. He's not, I mean, you can be both a fat skinny kid and a monster boy, but I guess that's the worst. But I often think that the monster boy cures the fat skinny kid, because what happens is if by chance you transform into the monster boy, you start to understand that you can't be a fat skinny kid if you want to keep this chick. So you really start to work on yourself and improve yourself, but for all the wrong reasons, for egoistic reasons, but reasons that are going to keep her around and try to keep her impressed by you. But it ultimately falls short because you're not doing these things out of sheer joy. You're just doing them to impress a woman, and you'll get something done. You'll lose a little weight. You'll just do things because you want to get this woman's attention, and you want to keep it, and you want to make sure that she doesn't change she doesn't go for somebody else. But at the same time, because you're obsessive and you're annoying, you still get dumped. But you get dumped at least a good-looking guy. Now, like I said, the fat skinny kid, he doesn't. He rarely gets dumped. Like, they keep him around. They usually cheat on him. And and some of them actually convince themselves that they're actually really they convince themselves that some of these women, they convince themselves that that they're in love and that they're attracted to the fat skinny kid. They just find him adorable, and women have this way of kind of not seeing the weight that you've put on, and just kind of accepting you as you are. If they really truly, I mean, usually it's because they've monster boyed over you. That can happen too. Women can monster boy over men, and the men give them such good sexual gratification that they can do no wrong, and they can actually, doesn't matter how fat they get or how kind of formless they get from their cut version that scored them, and that is a fat skinny producing type woman, right? One who accepts how the man can just get softer and softer and softer, and she kind of still sees the original hot guy chiseled somewhere in there, and doesn't even think that the guy got fat. She has just as much blinders on as the guy himself, as you do when you look in the mirror. And so you both are sort of complicit in creating this fat skinny kid, which eventually one day she wakes up and sees when she sees you next to some other guy, and she's just like, oh shit, I'm not attracted to this guy anymore. He's a fat skinny kid. So usually what happens is you go either into one camp or the other, depending on who the girl is. If the girl is just you never feel like the girl is settled on you, you'll go and you've had a hard time courting her in the first place, you're going to go full on monster boy pretty quickly, and you're not going to last. You might last a year with her, but after a while she's just going to get fed up with your jealousy and your assholeness. Just both of them combined. You're just going to terrorize her with it. The fat skinny kid's going to bore her to death, but like I said, women are content to be bored. It's a lot of them are, as long as the guy's not a cheat and takes relatively good care of them. They're willing to settle for the fat skinny kid. But it's a horrible life, and I don't think you should live as a fat skinny kid. And guess what? You're not here to impress a particular girl. You're here to impress the goddess. Okay? You're here to impress the ultimate woman that's watching down, looking at everything you do and evaluating you as somebody who's interesting or not interesting, sexy or not, somebody who is getting her hot, somebody who's just who's looking pretty pathetic, okay? So if you're just engaging in a lot of self-gratification with pornography, I mean, think about if the hottest girl that you've ever seen in your life is able to see what you're doing right now, wouldn't you be embarrassed? Because that's what's going on. You're being watched by the most beautiful creature ever. If you were to see her, you'd just be like, oh my fuck. All these hot girls you see around, they're just mere shadows of this goddess. And she can see your every move. And she wants to see something cool with what you're doing, something cool with what you're trying. And it can't just be all grindstone either. It can't just be all living your life really annoying. It has to be, not really. It can't just be living your life like a workaholic, trying to get things done, trying to be completely focused on getting ready for the big show, for example. No, you have to actually be kind of living a fun life too in the midst of that. So you have to make time to have fun. You have to make time to have an interesting time of things. You can't just be with your nose in a book doing things. And you have to be showing her counterpart, which is the woman that you're dealing with, a good time. You can't just warehouse her away. That's another form of just being a bad like a bad boyfriend. Now, that doesn't necessarily fall into either the category of fat, skinny kid, but the fat, skinny kid will do that. The fat, skinny kid never wants to go anywhere. The fat, skinny kid just wants to sit in front of the TV and shove some carbs into his face. The monster boy is just like, hey, let's not go anywhere because I want you to get naked. So that's what we're dealing with. So, lust, you shouldn't have like a tremendous amount of lust. And like the only way to really, if you really want to use your lust, like use it as a driver to become a better man that women will lust for. Women lust for men who have achieved things, who have a certain kind of undeniable charisma that comes with it. Like men, you cannot be very charismatic if you don't feel like you're accomplished. If you don't feel like you've set out to do something and accomplished it, carry with you the weight that is attractive to women. You don't. So it's not necessary that like she actually be impressed with what you do. It's just that you have to be impressed with what you do. And then you carry that sense of being impressed through every interaction. And that's attractive. And women find that attractive. So just understand that your lust is essentially telling you that your self-esteem has just dropped through the floor. And you're looking for sexual gratification, one as a distraction and also as a kind of validation of your sense of self-esteem. And when your self-esteem goes down, your anxiety goes up. And it's all tied together. Now, I've shown you the door out of anxiety. Anxiety is the absence of, bliss is the absence of thought. Anxiety is the presence of thought. Thought that isn't directed by you. Your brain can either be thinking about a specific thing that you want to focus on, that you intentionally want to focus on while you're breathing. It can focus on its breathing alone. It can focus on its breathing. And that's it. It can focus on its breathing alone, or it can focus on a specific topic while you're breathing. But it cannot focus on breathing and just daydreaming. Daydreaming will stop the breathing mechanism and then start the anxiety. Daydreaming is a form of non-breathing, which, when you just think about how anxious you feel if you go underwater and you hold your breath and somebody tries to keep you underwater, your anxiety will just raise exponentially. And that's kind of how you feel when you're not taking in enough oxygen, is your body starts to go into alarm mode. And you start ascribing all kinds of different problems to this anxiety. It has nothing to do with anything except the fact that you don't have oxygen. But you will ascribe all kinds of problems to it. And you will insert in anything that you fear, anything that you're anticipating, anything that you worry about as the thought and the truth behind that anxiety. And it's completely grafted on. It's not real. There's only one way to get rid of your anxiety, and that is to take deep breaths. And no matter how many times I'm going to tell you this, and no matter how many times you're going to tell yourself that, you're still going to fuck up. You're still going to find yourself daydreaming into anxiety. But if you understand that it's just a wandering out of bliss that you can just wander back into with a few deep breaths, and you can stay in as long as you keep those deep breaths up. Kinds of ways to keep myself breathing. I really have. And the closest thing I've ever been able to come to is just asking myself constantly, how do I feel? How do I feel right now? Do I feel light and airy, or do I feel annoyed? you should always monitor that, and don't allow yourself to feel annoyed. People think that that's just the way they should feel. No, you should never feel annoyed. Even when you're annoyed, you should struggle to get out of it. And it's always because of the breathing. Yes, certain occurrences will annoy you, but guess what? They're brought on by the breathing. Your whole entire parallel universe is dictated by the amount of oxygen that you're taking in. So if you take in a lot of oxygen and you keep that consistent, the things that happen to you, all these kind of unfortunate things that happen, they just won't happen. You'll live in a different parallel universe where it's a lot smoother, where you just get all the green lights while you're driving, like all the way down the road, and you just never have to like wait in traffic. And you ever find yourself sitting in traffic? Do you know the best way to clear up traffic is just to take a deep breath, because then you will actually end up in a parallel world where the traffic has just like broken. Yes. Same with computer problems. If you ever sat in front of a computer and got frustrated and the computer starts to freeze up, it's part of the parallel universe you're in by being annoyed. When you're annoyed, the goddess gives you an annoying parallel universe to match your annoying state. Just to teach you to wake up. It's your alarm clock. Otherwise, you would just stay not breathing. And there's the danger that, yes, you're going to get into a lot of problems, but still, it's more worth it for you to wake up. They put you in that state, in that universe, and you get more annoyed and you have more things to be annoyed about. So the more annoyed you are, the more you will be given things to be annoyed about. And the more blissful you are, the more you will be given blissful things to get bliss about. So you have to maintain, you have to always be asking yourself how I feel, and it always has to be in bliss. And you can't be in denial. You can be like, I'm in bliss, everything's fine. No, you have to really be in bliss, and you'll know you are. If you just right now, through your nose, keeping your mouth closed, take 3 deep breaths, and you'll see where the bliss is. It's right there. And it's always there. And it's just like, you're never going to find it at the end of your lust. And the fact that you are, you're lusting for something, or you're craving something, or anything that you're doing that just like thinks that like an external goal is going to give you that bliss that you're looking for. Some food, some like sugary snack, all this stuff is just, it's because you have anxiety, tremendous anxiety, and you're trying to quell it. And you see this as a way of becoming calm again. But the calm is always there with oxygen. And sometimes you're so tired and so just out of it and so just off the track that you just cannot focus enough to like understand that you just have to take a few deep breaths. And so then you get into all kinds of arguments. You say evil things. You become tremendously difficult to deal with, and a poisonous person. So it's very important that you monitor how you feel at every moment, and always asking yourself, how do I feel? And when it's not optimal, you know what the reason is, and you do the breathing. And you'll see that it will silence your thoughts, it will stop the chatter, and it will reduce the anxiety right away, instantly. The door to bliss is like right there. Now, the other show, the show before this, I talked about sleeping. And it turns out that there's all these like different cycles of sleep that you need to go through. And I've talked a lot about REM sleep, but there's all these other stages that you go in and out of. I mean, every 90 minutes is kind of a cycle where you kind of go into all the different modes. So try to apportion your sleep in 90-minute intervals. If you try to apportion it in, like they say, to get 8 hours of sleep, that's kind of waking up in the beginning of a sleep cycle, and you're going to be tremendously groggy. Maybe that's the whole point, is to get you on coffee or whatever. But that's why you reach for your coffee, because you've woken up mid-cycle, and so you need a coffee to just like slap you in the face to get you up. But if you wake up at the end of a cycle, you will feel rested, even if it's like 3 hours. The thing about it is you need a few of these cycles. You can't just get by. I mean, the human body has been kind of needing this amount of sleep for thousands and millions of years. So it's just something that you shouldn't fight. And I understand that your testosterone is like increased by how much you sleep. So the more you sleep, the more testosterone you have. And I'm sure that's true. The vitality level of people who sleep is going to be tremendously more than the people who cheat themselves of sleep. So all this stuff that I'm talking about is going to be, it's very easy to see on a rested mind, but when it's a tired mind, not easy to see. This is Lectures of Fallen Wisdom.